Great, thank you very much. I'll be brave and try to go all the way up here. Hello everyone, my name is Lundell-Nygjelten, and I will do a presentation on identity and access management for your web application. So I am coming all the way from Norway, and if you don't know where Norway is, it's as far north in Europe as you can come. It's usually very cold, and these days it's a lot of snow. But today I am a lead solution architect for Fishwell technology. I will come back to what Fishwell technology does, but from my early experiences I've been a consultant, a full stack developer at AAD, which is a consultant company that is owned by Accenture and Microsoft. So only specialized in Microsoft technology, and also one of the big reasons for why I'm presenting about .NET and Azure. So from my early experiences, I've been a full stack developer, as I said, and this, as you can see on the screen, is my main stack. I've been a developer in C#, in React, and a lot of Azure. You could almost call me an Azure developer. And if you go a little bit about the fish farming industry, which I work in, we are in last year we were selling fish for more than, how much was it? 15 trillion Korean won, which is a lot. And in the last 10 years, we've increased our sales to Korea by 300%. And also, if you have eaten salmon, which I hope you have, maybe the best fish in the world, it's a high chance that it comes from Norway, because Norway has a 96% market cap on all salmon in Korea. So it's a high chance that it's Norwegian. But we are not selling fish, we are supporting the fish farming companies. We want to do a digital transformation in the fish farming industry, which is a real greenfield industry in which there is a lot of still writing on paper and sending by fax almost. So there's a lot of opportunity in this industry, and we are one of the startups in this area. So we can see that there's still a lot of sensors, so there's a lot of data being produced in this industry, but they're not really sure what to do with that data, and that's where we come in. So we have, for example, two different applications, one called stress detection, of which you can see in the bottom there, a little small picture. It's a camera from above the sea. You can look down on the fish and see how stressed they are. And we need to analyze different actions, processes that fish farmers are doing on the fish. And we want to reduce stress, we want to increase the fish welfare, so that more and more of the fish stay healthy, and then we can sell more, and then less fish dies. And the other application that I will mainly talk about is something that we call detection, which is another camera that is stationed in the bottom left area there, up above, where all the dead fish are being pumped up. So we will count how many fish that died, and we can now also, by machine learning technology, analyze the different types of wound. So we can also count how many wounds, what type of wounds, and also go a little deeper in analysis. So it's really interesting area. So big opportunities there, and if you're coming from the machine learning world, we're using YOLO V7 with PyTorch and Norfair for tracking model. But that's not really my agenda today. So if you look at it, the agenda, I want to start off with defining some definition for you, so to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm not sure where everyone is coming from, what your prior experiences are. So I'll go through some definitions quick, and then I want to also talk a little bit about why you need an enterprise level identity and access management tool. You need to be secure, you need to handle the data in a rigid way, and that's one of the reasons why we need this type of tool. And then I will also link our experiences from Fishwell technology to the different subjects that I'm talking about, so that maybe the theoretical definitions will be a little easier to understand. The two last one is type of users, which is really relevant and a big subject in this. What type of user you have really defines what type of solution you need to build, and ending with all the access management when then focusing on tenants and roles. But first definition is single sign-on. I've heard other ones talking about that earlier, so I hope that maybe everyone is on the same page when it comes to single sign-on. There's another diagram of single sign-on really defining you have one account, and with one account you can log into multiple applications. You don't need to log in multiple times, and you don't need a lot of different accounts. So here, for example, we have Fishwell detection on the second to the top, and other Microsoft applications used in my example. Next definitions is two protocols that I've seen so many, maybe too complex definitions of, or ways of describing, so I'll try to make this as simple as possible. There's one protocol for authentication, and there's another one built on top of it where you get a lot more information and you get the ID token. So you can think of these two protocols as OAuth, getting a key, and then you get access to where you want to go. And with OpenID Connect, you get a badge. And we'll go back to this as well. What the badge means is the JWT token. But this is where you get a badge with information about you. So here we are really interested in roles and tenants, which are two huge things for us. And as it says on the little paper here behind me, is the Azure Active Directory. This is the tool that we use for identity and access management. And hopefully you have seen a little bit about that earlier. It's really enterprise. You can do a lot from that in Azure. And one other term that is be really relevant for this presentation is multi-tenancy. Also seen that someone else is talking about that earlier today, so that's perfect. And multi-tenancy is really enabling an app that can integrate users from multiple tenants. But then again, what is a tenant? It can be described as a grouping of people that can be grouped in a lot of several ways. We will stay with the definition of one tenant, one organization. So if I try to even describe multi-tenancy in more detail, if you have a single tenant web app, you have this. You have only one tenant that is connected to a web app. But if you have a multi-tenant web app, you have multiple tenants. But then again, what really is a tenant? So here, one more slide on that. Can be several companies. So as we are creating our application to be accessed and given access by multiple customers and partners, this is what we want to achieve, having multiple tenants connecting to our application. But there's also even more, a lot of reasons why you need an enterprise application or tool like this. The customers of yours, they need their own account, they need everything that comes with an account, they need their personal information, they need their access, they need to be able to log in, they need to be able to log out, they need to reset passwords, and also need different types of functionalities that comes with their account. And one other reason, which is maybe even more important, is the security aspect of everything. Being strict on customer control, data control, and not missing anything. Not if a customer logs in and they see their data from a completely different customer, then they lose customer trust. And if you lose customer trust, you're not to use a bad word, but you're not doing so well. And we do also show a little more examples about why we need a secure solution. You don't want to end up on a front page of a information security blog saying the top 10 data leaks of 2022, maybe like these unfortunate companies. And you can also see some examples on how bad people are of using a new password for every application, how often an attack occurs. You can see that an attack occurs every second for most applications on the web. Then it's really important to have a secure system, a secure application. If we then go back to our application, it's a little small here, but I'll zoom in on the view later. So there you can see a fish farmer out in the sea, out on its fish farm. It's pumping up fishes from the pens, coming up there and sliding down. And when they're sliding down, we have our video tracking them and using our machine learning on that sensor, that video sensor, and analyzing them, counting them, and getting all that rich data. And then on the bottom there you can also see the live feed that the users have on their tablet. So you can also see the actual video live and also see the counting as they come. So you can, if you look really thoroughly, you can also see the tracking done by the machine learning on all the different fish there. But if we go into the web app, this design should be pretty familiar sight for most people, I guess. It's not that very fancy new design. You have a sidebar, you have a navbar, and you have a dashboard in the middle there. So I've grayed out information because this is from our application with customers. But there you can see some data, the information about the company, how many fish that's died today, how is this period of time compared to the last period, is there more or less fish dying this period, and then you can click in on the graph, for example, and then you get the report. This is the dashboard. I won't talk that much more about this, but on the next one we have the daily report. This is one of the most important pages on our service. This is the fish farmers will go in here every day so that they can get an easy view of how many fish and what type of fish and which pen they were in, which site they were in, died that day. And then functionality coming soon, they will also input new data and then they will send that to API that is used by all fish farmers in Norway to track the fish death on a national level. This is, from my point of view, is one of the simple, is just a simple example I'll use today. And this is the other one that's a little more complex, a little more closer to identity and access management. And this is the user view. And I'll come a little more back to that at the end of the presentation. So what type of users? The types of users has a lot to say in what type of solution you should create. You have the business-to-business solutions, which is on a business level. You have integrating an organization into your application. We as Fishwell technology will sell our application to another business that is one of the biggest fish farming businesses in Norway, for example. And you also have business to consumer, which is not on a tenant level, it's not on a company level, it's not on an organization level, but there you can give users access that does not need to be connected to a tenant. So they can come in by other identity providers. I'll show a little bit more about that, what I mean by that. And the last subject, or alternative here I want to talk about is that you can also integrate into your own Azure Active Directory. So you can add users in your own Azure Active Directory as well. So when we see multi-tenant application, your own tenant is also one of the tenants that get access to the application. So business for us, maybe said everything that is on the slide already, but for us there is fish farming companies, which is our customers, but we're also in a big network of companies in Norway, so we need to give access to all the different partners as well. So that's the two main businesses that we are integrating into our solution. Business to consumer, this is what I mentioned earlier that we're not using yet. Maybe we will use in the future. But here you have two alternatives of identity providers. You can set up your solution so that you can get an authorization from either Google or Facebook. I'm not sure which big IT companies in Korea you would switch out with Google or Facebook, but it maybe with Naver or Kakao Talk, for example, and then they can authorize the account, and then you can let them get access to your solution. The main example that is usually used by B2C is an e-commerce site. So if you have a site where you sell clothes, then this will probably be the main solution for you. And the last one is, last of the three ones is users within our own Active Directory. We want to use this now because we have so few customers that want to integrate with the solution quickly. Maybe they don't have a big software development team, and then we can do the integration work on ourselves. We can create 2-3 users for them, and then we can let them test the solution quickly, and then hopefully we will push them over to the B2B solution by integrating the whole organization instead of we having to manage their users. And one of the main reason for why we just didn't want to add everyone to Fishwell, create only Fishwell users, is when we have B2B, then we can focus on the fish, we can focus on the machine learning, we can focus on the reports, we can focus on analysis, and then we can let Microsoft do the heavy lifting of managing users. Then we quickly coming to authentication and authorization. So here we're starting to look a little bit at the code. I haven't spoken much about authentication and authorization, but authentication is allowing someone to get access. You're getting the access token and you're allowed to go in through the door that was earlier locked. And authorization is if when you have gone into the door and there's multiple other functionalities in there, then you allow to the different functionalities. You authorize them on a more detailed level. This is a small snippet from our backend API. This is where you add services in the startup file, and here you add authentication, as it says, and then you need to specify which authentication scheme that you want to use. We want to use the JSON Web Token Bearer defaults authentication scheme, and we're also adding the Microsoft Identity Web API, and that is the connection to the AD, and there we can see the configuration get section. There you can do that in a different way. Maybe you want to do it in a manager on application app settings in a local level, or we have set it up getting from Azure Key Vault, which is a service from Azure that can manage and store your secrets, keys, and certificates. Then I also quickly want to show that in the front end, we're also using React on our front end in the web app, and this is where we are initiating the authentication process, and we are here using this library, if that is interesting to anyone on the React. Oh. If we then go to authorization, which I'll go a little bit more in detail on, because it's a little more complex, at least the way we've set it up. So again, we have two levels of authorization. We have the tenant and we have the roles. On the tenant level, we're integrating a company, and we need to check that you're coming from the company that we already have signed up for our solution. And you also have roles, which is specified to the account, and that let you access specific data and specific functionality that I'll come back to. And I also want to keep on the three different alternatives of how to set this up. So you have claims, first one on the left. This is the one that we are using. We're not using the other two, so I'll go in more detail on the claims, but this is what comes from the ID token. This is what comes from the JVT token. And there, later I'll show you which claims we're focusing on. In the middle there, you have user flows, which is a little more graphic user interface. So in Azure, you can go and click, create how you want your sign up and sign in flow to be for your users. And there you can manage which type of attributes you want to save to the user, and you have a lot of different functionalities. So if you don't want to create or write that much in your backend, this is a really handy alternative. And you also have a custom policies on the right there, which is a thing I would say in the middle of these when it comes to how much you need to modify or how much technical experience or knowledge you need. This is a policy template that you get from Microsoft, and then you can do a lot of customization in the code or in an XML file, which you then need to upload to Azure AD, and then you can customize the user experience by customizing the flows in XML files. Again, we are using only claims. The other two here are also using claims, but they're using claims in a different way. And if we zoom in on the picture of claims, we are using the roles and tenants, which you can see there. It's already default. It doesn't necessarily only need to be these claims. You can create your own claims. You can make this as complex as you want. And then you need maybe something that is called token transformation. So if you get a token or claims from a customer or partner that doesn't look like this at all, which is highly likely if you use tokens coming from a Korean company, for example, then you need to create even more logic in your backend and do some token transformation to enable them to get the tenant ID that you need or the roles that you need. That was a lot about roles, but how do we create and manage the roles? We are again using the one on the left. Now again giving three alternatives. You have application roles, which is the one that we use. I'll also show now how to create them in the next slides and how to manage them. But you can also use something that is called security groups, which is logic groups created in your system. It doesn't need to be AD. There's a lot of different identity and access management tools there that groups your users. And then you can give these groups different meanings. You can give one group administrative roles accesses, and you can give other group standard user, for example. It's not that relevant for the Azure AD presentation, but I also wanted to show on the very right there that you have a library from Microsoft that you can create all of this in your own database, but then you're missing out on the security aspect. You're missing out on a third party authorizing users, keeping you safe, basically. So I wouldn't recommend this for an enterprise level application, but if you're using this on your personal project, then you can maybe use the role manager class in ASP.NET Identity library. Going back to app roles, this is how it looks in the manifest on the right. You have a JSON file where you can write down the different roles. Here we have 2 out of our 4 roles, global administrator and administrator. And on the left there, you'll again have a graphical user interface alternative coming from Azure. There you can set it up by click and save if you want that instead. So then you need to go into your app registration in Azure AD and create the users or the roles, create roles that you need. And also quickly showing how it looks for the customer, the partner. So it gets a little technical. I'll show one more diagram where it maybe makes more sense. But when you sign up to the application, you get an enterprise application sign up in your AD. So if I'm customer Fish gets a link from us, clicks accept, and accept on all the accesses we need. And then in Fish Azure AD, they get this view where they can manage all of their own users. They can add as many users as they want, and they give the users the different roles. So the administrator of Fish can create as many administrators as they feel fit, at least for now. Maybe we'll be more strict on the access later. So going back to the token, this one is crucial, this one is important in everything, and I just want you to have this fresh in your mind that agility is the ID token, it's the badge that comes from OpenID Connect. And on this example, you can see the, it's maybe a little bit too small, can I do like this? Yeah, zoom a little bit in. There you can see my email, my role, and also the tenant ID, for example. There's a lot of other claims here. That's maybe not the most interesting for you or me. But here you can see that if you go into jvt.ms and paste in your token, you can get all the information that is in that string, in that token. If we then go into the code that is actually using the information, so I'm starting with creating policies. I'm defining what the different roles is, which are basically saying the policy for a standard user, the administrator, the site manager, the global administrator. And I'm also showing here the way that it's validating the claim by looking up if the claim and policy is successful, then you get the access. You also have a quick little thing there going through all the claims. If it is a role, then you use it for later. And then you also see that I don't have many minutes left, so I'll go a little more quickly. That if you are a global administrator, you inherit the access of the roles that are lower level access from you. If we then look at an example that I wanted to show you, this is the site or daily report. If you have worked with controllers before, added attributes, then this should look familiar to you. We have on the top of the controller just using the attribute authorize, and then you see the policy that we have set earlier. And we're using command and query responsibility segregation logic in our backend. So you can see that we're using a mediator with a handler. That's why you don't see the logic there straight away. And this is again for the daily report. And for the global administrator, it's look pretty similar. You have an attribute stating that you need this level of access, and then again, I'm not going into the logic, but there you can see that there can have access to a post functionality on users in the user administrator view that we have. I'm already on 30 minutes,
Yeah.
so I have four minutes left.
Yeah.
If you want to look more into this, then this is documentation on Microsoft that we've heavily used. This can show you everything from authentication to claims to app roles. So if you are interested in learning more about this, take a picture or use this page later. That was really everything from my presentation, but I want to give a last teaser. So this is what we've created so far, but we are now coming to a challenge where we want to create an ecosystem of applications. We have a lot of partners. We need to create single sign-on functionality between all our customers and partners. And we then have this, where you have 3 different tenants. And I hope you can see the small text, but there you can see that each tenant have their own application, and they have linked their access one-to-one with the other tenants. So then you get enterprise application access from the 2 other tenants. And this is how it looks today. But I want to challenge everyone that I'm talking to today to say that if you have worked with this earlier, if you have created an ecosystem with single sign-on, then I would love to talk to you. I'm not that big and scary, even though I'm Norwegian, so it's should be really low threshold to come and talk to me. My email is there, and also LinkedIn. I'm not sure if everyone uses LinkedIn, but there you can at least find me and my information. So I hope that you reach out if you have any comments or you would like to discuss Azure AD, .NET, or single sign-on ecosystem. There hasn't been that many questions today, but I can open up if there are 1 or 2 questions in the last 3 minutes. No, I guess no questions today. So that was it for me today. Thank you very much.